Welcome to The Connecting Place with Andrea Fabry, making the connection between health and your environment. Now, here's your host, Andrea Fabry.
Dafna Tachover is the CEO of We Are the Evidence, an organization which advocates for the rights of those who have been injured by wireless technology. She's an attorney. She has been injured herself, and today we're going to hear her story and her plea to authorities and consumers to wake up to the hazards of wireless radiation. Welcome to The Connecting Place, Dafna.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, I'd love to hear your story. You were an attorney, you were married, anticipating the normal progression of life, and something happened.
Yes. As you said, my life was good. We were living in Brinton, New Jersey at the time. I was planning to start a family. So I decided I don't want to continue to work for any big investment companies, etc., just so I can control my time if I have children. And we were trying to get pregnant, and I didn't know why I'm not getting pregnant, although everything was okay. And anyway, at the same time, I was starting to build my law practice, and very excited. I went to buy my first new laptop, the new laptop for the law firm, and laptops always have been my best friends. I used to love wireless technology like nothing else. In my background, in the Israeli army, I was a communication and computer officer, and I managed the computer center for the headquarters of the army and the operations center. So I was quite a techie person, and if anyone wanted to buy anything tech, they first contact me and get my advice. So I was immersed with the use of, I was using wireless technology extensively and loved it. And so then I went to buy my new laptop for the law practice, and I was very happy. I came back home, and something was wrong with the laptop. It seems that the area which was on the left of the mouse tab was vibrating, like something is defective. And I started getting tingling feeling in my fingers and my feet, and I would I'll get off the computer, and it will stop. I'll go back to the computer, and the symptoms came back. So,
let me interrupt. Let me stop you here. What year was that?
It was July 19th, 2009. I mean, I know the exact date and minute I became electrosensitive.
Okay. So it was a defective laptop. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So I started, getting those symptoms. I left the computer. I was fine, and I understand electricity, and it made sense to me that, something is defective, so maybe I get this static electricity from the computer, I'll get a new one the next day, which I did. I came back home, and again, something was wrong with the laptop, and I would get more symptoms. So it's not only tingling, suddenly I feel this very heavy, it was difficult to breathe. I would have like a chest pain, and I was 36, I was very fit, and so it was really weird that I would feel something in my heart. And I would feel my face become red and difficulties to breathe. I would leave the computer, I'll be fine. So that was already a little bit too curious. I said, you know what, something, this store that I was buying the computers from, I guess they don't treat their computer too well. And so I'll return the computer, and I go to a different store and get a different model of laptop. That's what I did. I came back home with a third laptop, and again, something was defective. And again, I'm getting symptoms every time I use my laptop. And at that time, I was already using laptops for over 18 years, and never, ever before something like that happened to me. I was the first person in the Israeli army to get a laptop from the army. So it was really weird. I said, okay, so what are the chances that I would have three defective laptops? I mean, that's really against all odds. And then I would get all these weird symptoms. And with the third laptop, it was extremely weird, because I remember my ex-husband was trying to talk to me, and I actually could not understand what he was saying. It was as if there was a complete cognitive blackout in my brain. So I decided to go to an Apple store, an official Apple store, and I asked him, I said, listen, guys, this is the third laptop I'm buying. All of them were defective. I mean, what's the odds? Can you please verify that this laptop is indeed defective and I'm not imagining the whole thing? So they took the laptop. After 20 minutes, they came back and said, yes, the computer is defective. And then in the meanwhile, I was talking to the store manager and said, listen, this is the third laptop. With every laptop I've been using, I would get this weird symptom. And I told her what the symptoms were. And I asked, did anyone report such symptoms when they're using your laptop? So she looked at me and she said, "Oh no, nobody complained of such symptoms. Maybe your body just doesn't like Apple computers." Now, if you go to Apple website, now it doesn't matter to which of their devices that they sell, you see hundreds of complaints of people who having the same symptoms as the symptoms that I was experiencing, including I would get headaches, heart palpitation, difficulty to breathe, nausea, tingling in the hands and in the feet, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so I returned the third laptop and I said, now I'll go back to the Apple store and I buy the laptop from Apple store. So that was the fourth laptop. But they already knew the story, so I guess they were afraid that I'm damaging their computers or something. So they asked if I'll check the computer at the store, and I couldn't. I just told them, guys, I feel so sick here. I have to get out of here. I need to go home, check my computer correctly. Anyway, same thing happened. I returned my fourth computer, and then I said, something's going on here. At the time, we were talking to some professor at Princeton University where my ex-husband was working, and he said, maybe with all of this new computer, she got a lot of chemical exposure from the new laptop. You should take a break. Oh yeah, taking a break from my laptop is not an easy thing for me, but okay, I took a break. But then something else started to happen. I remember trying to use my cell phone, and then suddenly I get this intense, sharp pain inside my ear and brain. It was so painful. So suddenly I cannot use my cell phone as well. So we decided to try and check what's going on with me. It's all becoming too weird. The first doctor we went to was my ex-husband was working at NYU before he was working for Princeton University. So we knew a cardiologist from there, and I went to meet with her. And I told her what was going on, and she said, well, every time I use my laptop, I get nauseous. So this was not weird for her in any way. Now, in order to be tested by the cardiologist, I bought another laptop, which was a fifth laptop. And I wanted her to test me while I'm using the laptop.
Was it an Apple?
No, this time I got a different laptop.
Okay.
I just went to Walmart and bought another laptop, and the same day or day before. And so I went to the test and I asked her to test me when I'm using a laptop, which is what we did, but nothing came up, and I was feeling fine from the laptop. So anyway, I went back home, and again, I got sick on the way from the train, and I didn't know, I was getting sick now in a lot of places and from a lot of things. So I got back home and I opened the laptop and I wanted to use the internet. I said it was fine. I felt fine when I used it at her clinic. And then I noticed that there's no wireless connection. So I put on apparently this specific laptop had this button that you have to turn off and on in order to have the Wi-Fi. The moment I turned it on, that's when I started having the symptoms. So that's when I understood why I did not get any symptoms when she was testing me. And that's when I understood that what is the main cause of my symptoms was actually the Wi-Fi, not just the laptop.
Okay, let me interrupt here and ask. So as you look back at the first laptop, the very first Apple laptop that you noticed the symptoms, when they say it was defective, was it emitting just too much radiation in one spot, or do you know?
No, they didn't. What happened was, at the time you don't suspect anything. I mean, I never in my life heard about people who get sick from using laptops or cell phones or anything. I never heard about electrosensitivity. I never heard about anything. And I think worse than that, I even didn't want to know, I guess, because I always tell the story that about 6 months before I got sick, my ex-husband was seeing me talking on a cell phone, and I was always on my cell phone. I did not have a home phone. And he said, Dafna, maybe you should take 10-minute breaks between calls. And I never asked him, why do you say that? I remember that I looked at him, I smiled, I didn't answer, and I remember in my head, I was telling myself, oh, worst case scenario, I'll get brain tumor when I'm 70. Everything causes cancer, So it was really weird for me because I know how knowledgeable he is about science, and I consider myself a very curious person, and I never asked him why he said that. But anyway, back to your question. So I never heard about electrosensitivity or any symptoms from it. And so it's not that when it happened, I thought something, I just really saw something defective in a computer. And that's why I get this tingling. It's like static electricity that is being created from a defective computer. So, and I didn't suspect or imagine that any of this is going to continue and happen. So I just returned the computer. They just we didn't check what's wrong. They just noticed that something is wrong, that it is indeed vibrating when it shouldn't. So same thing happened with the second laptop. I do have the reports that the computer is defective. That's why they took it back and gave me back my money. I also have so I kept all these reports that prove that that I'm actually, not imagining anything, that something was wrong with those laptops.
And what do you suspect, or now that you know what you know, what do you think defective means?
Well, it's very difficult to know. I think, we are electric beings. Our body is an electric system. Our brain is an electric system. Our thoughts are an electric system. Our heart is an electric system. So clearly, we are going to be affected from electrical appliances or electromagnetic radiation. And so, it could be a lot of things that happened. It could be that the laptop was defective and maybe was emitting excessive amount of wireless radiation that messed up my body, or maybe it was just an electric current that caused my electric system in the body to get off. Or it could be a lot of things. It's very difficult to say. Or maybe there was something actually wrong with my body, and I was actually the one who caused the laptop to get bad. Like we can do that to machines. I mean, if we have excess electricity in our body and we touch these electric things, they can get bad. And actually, when I went to the Apple store, I noticed while they were testing my computer, I noticed that all the technicians were wearing bracelets. So when they finished testing my laptop, I asked them, "What is it, that bracelet that you're wearing?" And I noticed that the bracelet is connected to a socket. I said, "This is a grounding bracelet." So and that's what they said, because we have electricity in our bodies and we deal with all these electric components. If we have too much electricity, we might destroy those components. Our body might destroy those components. So we're constantly being grounded to make sure we do not have any excess electricity in our body to damage those components. So actually, that's what after this happened, that's what I did. I went to a store and bought the same bracelet and said, okay, maybe I do have some excess electricity in my body, and that's why all of this is happening. So maybe I'll ground myself, and that's cool. So that actually was the first thing I did.
And did it make a difference for you?
Not at the time. Later on, when I became, more affected by this, and I learned more and more things, I actually did use it, and sometimes it did help. Sometimes it makes things worse. And I learned that if the socket is not properly grounded, then I'm going to actually get more electricity in my body and harm my body. But there were times where I was feeling like a lot of electricity in certain places in my body, and I would ground myself this way, and it would get better. Yes.
So you became to the point where you couldn't even use your cell phone, then you can't go on the train, you almost, in a sense, and some people would say allergic, to the world. Allergy probably isn't the right word. Electro-hypersensitivity is just extremely reactive. Where did that take you?
Well, for a few months I was still functioning, so I was not able to use my computer properly. I was not using the cell phone as much, but I guess, again, we don't know that this is going to be a long-term future. You just want to believe that you'll get better or something, that this is something temporary. So I still didn't change all my life. I remember my father actually came, and because it was all sound very weird to him, although he knew I'm a very, sensible person, so he actually believed everything I said, but he was just wanted to see. But so for a few months I was functioning, but then I went to Israel because I thought maybe I'll feel better there. Maybe they build houses differently. I don't know. I just said I'll try. And the first day I got there, I was driving to visit my brother, and there was suddenly I felt such an intense pain in my head. I actually could not hold the wheel anymore, and I was just putting my hands over my head. And I actually felt from which direction the pain was coming. So I lift my head and I look to that direction, and I see a big building, which was a shopping mall. And on it were a lot of like white stripes. And I asked my mother, what are these stripes? Because this is where my pain is coming from. And she says, those are the cell phone antennas. And I actually I had tears in my eyes. I said, oh my God, there are children growing up here. And from that moment, really, my life changed completely. I went back to my parents' house. I could not be in their house. It was an apartment. I could not stand up in the apartment. I was sitting on the floor all the time. I was having intense pains. And, I'm a soldier and I've been an athlete. And so I know about pain. This was not pain. This was torture. And I hardly ever cry. I cried so bad from the pain. I literally just wanted to die. And it was a nightmare. A month later, I went back to the US and suddenly I could not be in my apartment anymore. I could not sleep a minute in my apartment. I could not be there. It was a non-stop torture. And then I heard about Green Bank. At the time, it was not as popular as now, but
Greenback, West Virginia.
Yeah, that's a place where there's the federal government observatory center, which has a lot of telescopes. And in order not to interfere with reception from outer space, this is the only place in the U.S. where cell towers are banned in a certain radius. And so I actually, after a month of being really miserable, I heard about it. This next day, I just took my car and drove there. I had no idea where I'm going to sleep or do. I just drove there. I had to sleep. I was desperate to sleep. And I got there and I met Diane Scow and she offered me to stay at her house, but I couldn't be there. I felt sick in her house as well, so I just put a tent outside. It was pretty cold. I guess it was like probably around, I don't know, 10 degrees Fahrenheit or something. Like really freezing, but I didn't care because at least for the first time after 6 months, my brain was clear. I could think. It was like a whole different feeling. It was so weird. I didn't sleep there either because it was too cold. And I spent a week and then I thought, I have no choice. I cannot live anywhere else. I mean, I became allergic, as you said, to wireless and we live in a wireless world. So I have no choice but to move to Greenbank. So I found a job in some kind of hotel with farm there. And, I thought that I'm moving there. So I registered to take the bar there and I spent 3 months in Greenbank, and I was taking care. I'm not one of those who ever pet animals, but I suddenly found myself taking care of 15 horses, 3 llamas, 5 goats, and one sheep. Anyway, so I've been there 3 months, but I still didn't feel well there as well. And also, my life just collapsed. Everything I worked for, everything I knew as what my life is going to be, kind of like collapsed. And Greenbank was so weird for me culturally and otherwise. And I just, it was too much of a shock, and I just said, I have to find a way to go back to my world, to my husband. So I went back and I started to look for a house. And in the meanwhile, I was living in my car, which was a nightmare. And I guess that when you say you live in your car, it sounds bad, right? But it's worse.
Worse than bad?
It's worse than anyone can imagine. And it's not that I was really living in my car. I was like, I was just driving every day, trying to find one spot without radiation. I can sit quietly and relax. And I couldn't, or I found this spark and then another car will come and the person will have a cell phone. I would immediately feel it and I would just be tortured and have to go again. And trying to sleep in parking lots, and it's really horrible experience. I was trying to find a house. I was checking over 200 houses, and eventually I found one duplex that was in a good environment, but the neighbors were using a Wi-Fi, so I actually knocked on the door and asked them not to use Wi-Fi, explained the situation. And they were very kind people, and they actually agreed not to use the Wi-Fi anymore, so I can live there. I lived there for a year.
4 years? 4?
For 1 year, sorry.
Oh, for 1 year. Uh-huh. For
a year, yeah. And but at the time it became clear that this is not enough of avoidance, and I was still not feeling well. And I decided I have to move to another place, and it became clear, that I have to divorce my ex-husband because, the way I felt at that moment was that my life got destroyed. My life is, going to be changed forever, and it's not fair to destroy his as well. And he worked so hard to get to where he was, and he cannot live in the middle of the woods nowhere if he wants to have anything happening in his life. And I also felt that I don't want anyone to look at me in 40 years and look at me with his face saying, oh, this is the woman that destroyed my life. So I decided to get a divorce, and I decided to move to a place where there's no radiation at all, so my body could recuperate. The way I thought about it was, if you get wounded, your body wants to heal, but if you keep on scratch that wound, it will never heal. So same as what happened to me with radiation, my body got injured from it. If I keep on being in an area with a lot of radiation, I would never be able to heal. So I need to go somewhere else and avoid it completely.
I relate to this from those who have multiple chemical sensitivity, and the body becomes hyperreactive to that or to toxic mold, as is the case our family. I so resonate with that's why avoidance in both those cases is so successful, is because the body gets a chance to calm down. But I can't imagine trying to find a place without any type of wireless radiation, but it sounds like you found a place.
Yeah, well, I'm a determined person. I just knew that this is a fight to save my life. I was so sensitive. I was one of those. I could feel anything and everything, and I would feel them immediately. I could say which direction they're coming from, what they are. I was like, it's like living in a whole different world. And this movie, What Women Want, with Mel Gibson, when he hears everything that women think. This is how I felt. I mean, it's almost like I live in a different world. I feel everything. I feel the wall socket. I feel the antenna. I feel Wi-Fi from huge distances. I feel cell phone from 30 feet away. So it was like you live in a nightmare of a world. I feel every plane that is passing by. I feel their radars. So I knew that, I cannot take it anymore. I cannot sleep. My body is under nonstop torture. My brain doesn't work. So I knew there's no choice. I have to get away. And I had to find a place that it's like I can drive to look, but it's not that far. So I thought about the Catskills in New York. And even then, it took me, I checked over 500 houses. I was so sick that I would feel anything and everything. And from 5 houses that I checked, eventually I found only one house that I could tolerate. And it was a very old cabin from 1860 in the middle of the woods. There was no cell phone reception there. There was the closest neighbor was like 400 yards away, so nothing they do affect me, and there was no one else living on that street. The area is mountainous, so I know that there's no, that's good blocker of radiation, and there were really only 2 cell towers in the area on 2 ski resorts, and so the closest cell tower was about 4 miles or 5 miles away from my house. So, and the moment I got into that house, immediately I felt better. Mm. So I moved there. For a while I was feeling very, I was after it, I think at that point I was sick already for over 2 years, and I was exhausted. And I was exhausted, I was depressed, it was all a lot happened in this very short time. And, so for a while I just lie under the blanket and didn't want to do anything. Also could not tolerate anything. At that time I became also very sensitive to the lower magnetic field, from refrigerators, even I could not even tolerate light bulbs. So I was living without electricity, without light. I couldn't tolerate music. Anything with vibrations was affecting me. And so for a while I just let my body calm down. And then I heard that in Israel they're deploying Wi-Fi in schools. Although the government said that, wired internet should be preferred, the opposite was happening, and I felt that I couldn't tolerate the thought that some of these children may become as sick as I am, and I really couldn't sleep because of it. And so I decided I have to take action. And I decided to submit a Supreme Court case in Israel to ban the use of Wi-Fi. I mean, I had no idea how I'm going to do it, considering I was 6,000 miles away. I could not take a plane. I don't have income, and I don't know when I'm going to have income, considering, I cannot be anywhere. But I knew I have to do it, and I did it. What
did you do exactly? You got involved in the case
I initiated it. I funded it. I submitted it. I contacted the second largest national parents organization in Israel, extended topic, and asked if they joined that action, and they did.
And you did this by courting your computer, I assume, finding a tolerable computer and being wired?
Everything I did, I mean, I thought I'm pretty determined. So earlier I was trying to find a computer that I can tolerate. And I worked so hard on finding a computer that I can tolerate, a monitor that I can tolerate. I think I changed it. Like, I spent a month and a half just working on getting a good monitor that I can tolerate. So I sent, I sent back, I went to every store. I mean, I did like really intense work on getting an infrastructure that I can tolerate and do something. I remember when I was living in a car, it was a horrible feeling. It was, I would go to the library to take books, and all I can do during the day is read, and even that I could not always do. And it was a horrible feeling. Is it going to be the rest of my life? I mean, then I just better not have a life. So I knew that if I want to not get depressed, if I want to be able to tolerate my life as is, then I have to create some kind of structure that I can work with. And so I was putting a lot of effort into, as I said, creating work environment that I can tolerate. And but even with the wired, the wired internet, the wired computer, the wired phone, like the landline, even those I was not always able to tolerate.
You just had to listen to your body and keep.
Yeah. So and I didn't have internet really. I was having dial-up internet, which is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a comedian who said that if you want to marry a woman, let her use dial-up internet for 10 days, and then you'll know who you're going to marry, right?
Well, Dafna, we are out of time. This is not the first discussion we'll have, because our listeners need to hear from there what has happened in the last few years and the type of vision you have for taking action and waking us up. But thank you for sharing this story. And a lot of people will relate, if not identify even now what's going on with their body. So keep up the great work, and I look forward to talking to you again.
You've been listening to The Connecting Place, making the connection between health and your environment. Join us again next time for The Connecting Place with Andrea Faber.